set up technically. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave us a comment. Leave us a comment on either on the chat, and we'll post it up for you to get it live questions.
Yes.
Yes,
So
sir.
just kind of following up with what Gordon was saying, everybody. Yep, we're going to be on. So I'm Dr. Keith Fairclough. And today, we're going to be talking about what self-care looks like for men, or what it should look like for men. And we're going to be also talking about some of the pitfalls that happen with us as to why we end up in pretty bad situations, due to the false idea of what masculinity is. And so we're going to be talking about that. And we're going to talk about some self-care things you should be doing and need to be part of your repertoire as taking care of yourself right now. Right. So we're going to be going over all that. And again, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll address them as they come up.
Beautiful, beautiful. Doc, what brought this subject up? Because last week we did where you start is not where you end up. And then part of the whole system that we got going on is having that self-care into diving into, say, whatever you got going on. Why is it so important?
Well, self-care, I mean, it's in the word, right? The two words, self and care. You have to care for yourself. And if you're going to be operating in you being a leader, provider, protector, you cannot operate effectively or efficiently in those roles if you don't take care of yourself. And unfortunately, what happens to a lot of us as men is we put ourselves on the back burner as if it is a badge of honor. I put everyone else ahead of me. I put my wife ahead of me and my kids ahead of me and just everyone ahead of me. And as this is supposed to elevate your manlyhood or your masculinity, and it doesn't, right? It doesn't at all. I don't know who told us it did. And of course, I'm not saying don't take care of your family. If you've been following us for any period of time or seeing any of my content, clearly I'm not saying that. But this whole abandoning ourselves, as if that self-sacrifice is critical and necessary, it's part of the process. I don't know who told anybody that, but that's not the truth at all. It's just not. We have to care for ourselves. The only way that we can actually provide properly for our family, lead properly for our family and friends and community, the only way we can do that and protect properly is if we care for ourselves. Think of it like this. Imagine having a bodyguard who works 3 jobs and gets 2 hours of sleep, and they're supposed to make sure they're aware and hyper vigilant enough to protect you. Would you want your bodyguard to be like that, to be stressed out, drained, exhausted? Of course you wouldn't. And if we are, again, protectors, that's a role that we as men play. If we're drained and worn out and exhausted all the time, how can we protect our wife and our children? How can we protect our business? We're going to let things slip. Things are going to slide. There's going to be problems. We're going to miss things. We're not going to be as sharp. So it's critical that we prioritize self-care in order to properly engage and take care of our responsibilities outside of ourselves.
No, absolutely. You're 100% true. Because even for me as a father, if you're running on empty, I'm no good to my family, my kids, my wife, anything else. Because as a dad, you give everything to your family. You could be providing, you could be protecting, you could be working 12 hours a day. But sometimes you feel guilty for taking time for yourself. And at the same time, your family needs you at your best opportune, because you get to give them a whole part of you that they can take with them, as for my sons, as for them to become young men, young boys, to gain confidence. Because if I'm all grouchy, yelling and everything else, and I have anger issues and I'm not taking care of those issues, guess what happens to my kids? They reflect what's going to happen. They're going to reflect back to me what I just showed them. And it doesn't do no good, especially if I'm frustrated, if I'm not constantly like tired, or, I'm short tempered, or I'm staying away from the family responsibilities because I just don't want to, because I'm not okay with myself. How does that leave anybody in the family or the people that you come in touch with? Especially like for me and Doc, where we're doing our program, right? If we're not at our best, how can I give my best to you, right? Because understand that, self-care is like the oxygen, and it isn't selfish. it's just something that needs to be done because it's been put on the back burner from old beliefs, like from wherever, since you was tilling the earth. You mean I gotta put these things in the ground so I can feed my
Mhm.
family? Well, things like changed, especially I did one for the modern man the other day where it's like the masculinity is different now, right? And that's a whole nother subject that we can talk about later on.
Mhm.
But Doc, how do you like distinguish societal expectations that limit those emotional expressions? And how do you fix that if you can, or elaborate on that?
Well, I think when it comes to society, well,
Oh, Mike
first,
Mika's on. Hey,
good to see you.
Mika.
When it comes to society, I've always said, it's the worst teacher, the absolute worst teacher. I don't know why we look to the world and society as for standards, right? You wouldn't look to a crackhead for seeing, okay, what's the best way to manage my life? You wouldn't do that. You just wouldn't. You wouldn't look to someone whose marriage is falling apart and ask them for marriage advice. You wouldn't do that. But yet so often we look to the world and say, oh, the world standard says, oh, as men, you have to burn yourself out. If you're not, making all this money and meeting all these standards, then you're not a real man. And it's like, well, again, I always say, who set the standard? We're not asking that question. Who set the standard? I understand the education system taught us to be robots. I get it. It taught you not to think. It taught you just to follow along and follow directions like a good little boy. I get it. But we got to break out. We're grown men now. We have to start asking ourselves those questions. Who set the standard? Who said I have to kill myself every day, sacrifice myself every day, and that's what it means to be a man? Who said that? And and again, for anyone naysayer who's thinking, oh, well, kid, you say not to work hard? Of course I'm not saying not to work hard. No, I'm not saying not to work hard. What I'm saying is, who said you have to kill yourself in order
Right.
to provide us life? I remember I was online recently, and it was in this video, and it was someone was talking about it. I was in the chat, and I was responding to somebody, and it was about that whole concept. And as far as like, getting married and all these things like that. And I'm like, theoretically speaking, right? If you're doing well for yourself and can manage your own life, and then you get married and you keep your wits about you and your finances, you shouldn't have to kill yourself just because now you got married. Right.
No,
So
yeah,
if you find you have
absolutely.
to kill yourself just because you got married, now you have to work 2 jobs. Now you have to work 16 hours instead of just the 8. Now your expenses rose all. You did something completely wrong. It has nothing to do with masculinity. That has to do with poor financial planning. Period. Point blank, end of discussion. Because if you were living it on your own and doing great with 50,000, and you get married, and let's say she's making 50,000, you just doubled your income. Why are we now doubling our lifestyle? That has nothing to do
Yeah,
with
same.
masculinity. So a lot of these things that society says you have to do are based off dysfunction in the first place. It's based off of dysfunction. So that's why I always say, who said it has to be that way? And why can't we go ahead and make sure we're making plans and setting things up? So as far as like society is saying, yeah, of course, it says all those things. You gotta, to be a man, you gotta make all this money. To be a man, your wife should never have to work. To be a man, you this, and to be a man, and all that. I'm like, just stop and ask yourself the question: who said that? Who said that's the way it has to be? You know, it's crazy. I don't understand why we keep looking to society, and everybody can look and see society is a disaster across the board for everybody, men, women, children, black, white. Society is a disaster. We have a few little voices. I'm getting my soapbox real quick. You have a few little loud chihuahuas making all this noise, and because we haven't been trained to critically think, we allow them to tell the story and tell the narrative. And then we follow that narrative instead of saying, that's stupid. That's garbage. That's ridiculous. Like, as people, we do understand that these people parroting on mainstream media and parroting on social media, all this garbage, it's a very select few people. Most of us want to be just good men and take care of our families and love our wife and love our children. Most of us don't want to be calling women, bees and hoes. Most of us don't want to be, we just want to work, and we want to contribute, and we just want to live our life in peace. Most of us want to do that. Most of us love our children. Most of us, but society says all these things. I remember there was a period of time where all these young guys would get on, oh, I got the Lambo and I'm 20 years old and you can do it too. And it's like, that's not even real. Like, this stuff is not even real. So I say all this to say, back to the question, right? The question is, as far as like, how do we fight back against society and the foolishness? Like, just ask yourself that question. Who set the standard? And if the standard is not set by God, whether you're religious or not, if it's not set by God, then guess what? We don't have to listen to it. Period. Point blank, end of discussion. Because if you're not religious and you don't believe in God, that should be even more better for you, right? Because more better. I don't know if you get more better is what you could say, but
you can say more better. I speak pidgin English. I'm from Hawaii. I speak pidgin English, broken English. We still communicate in this place, right?
But then you could say, okay, but what actually works? Right? Grounded in research. Research backs up God anyway. So if you don't want to believe in God, fine. Go look at research. Research says all that stuff society is saying is garbage, right? It's foolishness. So I would say just question that. Question those standards. Question where it came from. And then look at your own life and saying, dang, well, I don't like what they're saying. What's a good way to go about getting my life in order and making sure I have that self-care so I'm not destroying myself based off some fallacy that's going on. And yeah, so I could go on more with that, but I better step off my soapbox so I can keep going.
Let me go down. But you got to understand, guys, that Doc is real passionate because we were once that person. Emotional, you got to think real strength is just not physical. It has to be emotional, and it has to be the life choices that you make determines what happens in the future. I just did a post today. It says, like, from Stephen Harvey, besides your relationship with God, right? Your relationship with who you pick as a partner will determine how you move in life. That person that you pick will either, like an elevator, it'll take you up or it'll take you straight down to everything else, because I've been a victim of that also. But because who you choose, but you also have to have that stigma taken away from you and take those old beliefs and throw them out the window. Because if you're following all these so-called gurus, because it just happens because it's prevalent, but then when you see them years down the line and they're crashing out right now, who's going to be the winner, right? Is it going to be you that have grasped your old beliefs, challenged it all, and became diverse in everything that you do, and making it so that you can be solid, have a solid foundation, not just with the choices that you make, but the beliefs that you have that push you through everything else that life throws at you. Because once people break, and they also go to where you go the most comfortable with, right? Like for somebody in my situation, might deal drugs, go cook up dope, get back in the scene, do the criminality. But guess what? If you put that life aside and you're strong emotionally, spiritually, and you make the right choices, the doors open up because you see things from a different window. And once you see things from a different window, the old beliefs get shattered because you're going to move differently. And once you move differently, to me, that's how the curiosity of what's behind the other door will actually change. And those traditional male old beliefs that your grandfather was teaching you, or your stepdad was teaching you, or how you was abused, that this is how it is, goes out the window. Because at the end of the day, are you going to pass those on to your kids, to your wives? I don't want to do that, because it put me in a place where I wasn't comfortable. Am I comfortable in my own skin now? Absolutely. It took a little while. It took a lot of mistakes, but you still have the time to do it, because real strength comes from knowing yourself, and whatever past that you had, like last week said, where you start is not where you end up. And I'm a big, huge proponent for that. And it comes with your communication, how your level of emotional intelligence, how your life is moving according to your leadership skills for your family. And guess what's going to happen, guys? People will gravitate to you, not even knowing it, right? Because people just want to be around you, and you're going to have you're going to have like a self-confidence that outweighs your ego. And there's a big difference, right? Doc, let me ask you this question. Let me separate. I want to ask you the question. Oh, let me switch this up for here. we're getting fancy with our technical ability, right? The, a dream outcome when you start shattering limiting beliefs about masculinity and self-care. What happens once you start doing that?
So, well, even before I answer that, I just want to respond to what Mika was saying as far as like having that balance,
Oh, let me put
right?
that up there.
If you don't have essentially if you don't have balance, yeah, your life it can become dysfunctional, right? But
Absolutely.
now I know there's people online, that will say like their work-life balance is, that's foolishness. You got to be able to go all in and things like that.
Ooh, I've been there.
You know,
I've done
it
it.
it's a lot more nuanced than that, right? It's a lot more nuanced than that. And I think if you take that at face value, it can be very damaging. And that can, again, feed the whole don't take care of yourself type thing, right? The whole not self-care because you got to go all in on the goal. I love when Tony Robbins he said work-life integration. I think I like that a little bit better because it makes sure you are incorporating all the most important aspects of your life in your life. And it's not separating it out. But I won't go all the way into that. I just want to address what Mika was saying as far as that's concerned. But you have to be very mindful and aware of what that even looks like.
Yeah.
But now what happens when you shatter those old school beliefs, and you start actually doing the self-care the right way, you get your life back. You get your energy back. You get your libido back. You get your
Everything
relationship
back.
back. You get your relationship with God back. You get your faith back. You get, you get your ability to grow back. Like you get all of those things back when you shatter those beliefs and stop believing a broken and dying world. You get all that stuff back. You could smile again. You could breathe again. That's what happens when you start making sure you have the proper self-care time and taking that for yourself. You could be more efficient in everything you do. There's no more brain fog. Shoot, I can go on down the list. There's so many things that take place.
Yeah.
Your health improves, your mental health improves, your stress levels go down, like it's all the, if it's good, it happens when you start taking care of yourself. How about that?
Yeah, good. And it gets better.
It's good. All right. If it's good, that's what happens when you start taking care of yourself.
Let me ask you this, Doc. When in your practice, how do you see what happens when you see people identify that burnout stage? Right? When you what is the process? Because we talk about a lot of things. I want the viewers or some of our fans right now what to do or how to identify that you're in that state and what to do about it.
Oh, that's simple. When you become depressed, when you
Doc
become
goes, "Oh, huh."
when you become depressed, I mean that's your body's signal to you that hey, we got to stop. We got to stop. Right? It's too much going on right now. We are drained. We are tired, and your body will literally start shutting you down. That's what depression is. It's not about, and a lot of people conflate depression and sadness as the same thing. They're not the same thing.
Two different things.
Can they coincide? Yes. But depression is just when you become overwhelmed. Depression and overwhelm is synonymous, right? Too much has been going on. We're over our capacity. We've done too much. We need to stop and slow down. You ever had your think of it like this. Think of it like your phone. You ever had your phone overheat? And when your phone overheat, what does it do? Shuts down. And then how do you try to turn it back on? It says, it's overheated. Right? So that's the natural system built into the phone that says, it's too much. We got to stop. It's dangerous at this point. Depression is that natural system that says, hey, we got too much going on right now. We got to get this stuff figured out because we're beyond capacity at this point. So that's the sign I see when people come in. And you know what happens, Gordon? Every time I ask them, they come in, yeah, I think I'm depressed. I'm like, all right, tell me what you got going on. Oh, I got this and this and that and this and this, my relationship and work and money and this and my past and this and this and this and this. And they talk for 15, 20 minutes. And after they're done saying that, I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. Of course you're depressed. Who wouldn't be? You're not resting, and you had all these things happen at the same time. You're beyond capacity. You are beyond capacity. And so what you're supposed to do once you hit that point because it's a message. It just happened to me the other day. I think it was last week, Monday, I think it was, or maybe it was this past month. No, it was last week, Monday. Went to bed on Sunday night. Thought I got a good night of sleep. I thought it felt like I got a good night of sleep. Woke up exhausted. Like
one of them days, huh?
And I said, I know what it is. You know exactly what it is. I didn't rest on the weekend. I did too much on Sunday. I extended my day all the way out, and I normally don't do that. So I need to get that time. It was immediate. It was immediate. And once I got the message, and once I kind of relaxed in the morning, kind of got a little bit of time back, played some video games, guess what? Gone. Message received. Right? I did self-care because my body was like, hey, too much, man. Hey, you push yourself. Hey, too much. Right? But the problem we have as people, though, especially as men, the problem is, but beyond not talking about what we got going on, but we also keep pushing. I just got to do it. I got to do it for my family. Got to put them on my back. Oh, I got to keep going. That's what it means to be a man. Don't stop and care for yourself. Just keep going. Now, you're already beyond your limit, right? You're already beyond your limit. Your body told you, your mind told you, you're already beyond your limit. But instead of answering the call and being like, okay, how do I got to deal with this, man? I'm drained right now. I got too much going on. Oh, I have these 5 things I don't have to be doing. Yeah, I'm not going to do them anymore. Oh, there's this list of things that are easy to resolve, and I got to get them out of my mind. Well, let me do those things and get them out of my mind. When we started the call, when I got on this morning, what did I tell you? I told you I had all these things that I got out of my mind, and I felt free. I felt phenomenal. I felt great. Right?
Beautiful.
So we don't answer that call. Instead of doing the self-care, instead of taking that message, what we do is we bury it because society tells us to do it. And then we just keep pushing forward. And then you keep getting drained more and more and more. And then you start getting irritated. Gordon, you mentioned like coming home and being irritated and frustrated because you understand that irritation, frustration, anger, the reason why you get that when you're burnt out and when you're depressed is because that's your body's signal to tell the world, I can't take anything more. I don't have the capacity. And so I'm using the anger to solve those problems or get people away so I don't get any more on me. And so, but we keep pushing. We keep pushing. Now your kids don't want to be around you. And you keep pushing. And you keep pushing. Now your wife don't want to be around you. And you keep pushing. And you keep pushing. Telling yourself the narrative and the story that I'm doing it for everybody. And I put them all on my back. And I'm doing this. And I'm doing that. And that's why. And instead of just saying, you know what? I got to take a step back. I'm sorry. I got to take a step back. I'm burnt out. I'm going to take a day. I'm going to get some pizza. I'm going to get some fries. I'm going to watch a movie. I'm going to play a video game. I'm going to do something, right? So because I am burnt out, I need to recharge. I need to get things off my plate. And then what happens is what you end up doing, then you can start, because there's other strategies as well, but we're not going to go into it because we're not really here to talk about how to handle depression and overwhelm. But there are strategies you can put in place in addition to self-care that can help alleviate that altogether. But long story short, that's the issue. That's the problem, right? We're not listening to the message that our body is telling us, that our brain is telling us, and responding accordingly. Because if you listen when it tells you the first time, you won't have persistent issues. You're not going to have chronic depression, right? Just so we live in a world, again, society says, oh, you got to be depressed forever. Take these meds. Go ahead.
I was just about to say.
Pop them for the rest of your life. So we can cash out and send our kids to Harvard, send our kids these expensive schools. I can buy my yacht. I can buy my $10 million house, and you just got to be depressed forever. Like, you just got to be anxious forever. Take those pills. Like, that's what the world, that's what society tells us. But if you just did the natural thing and just like, hey, got too much going on, let's sit back, let's relax, let's take a break, let's recharge, let's get organized, let's put a system in place, let's do these things, so that I don't stay in this state. So I'll be honest, Gordon, I don't remember what the question was anymore. I just started going. But hey, maybe someone in the chat, still remembers. But that
oh, that is funny. I told you Doc was going to go off. But let me ask you guys. Okay, because now for some of you that's out there in TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and everything else that's streaming out all over this place, right? Because we're streaming to 5 different platforms, right? If Are you dismissing some of those subtle signs that's been going on that might be stressing you out, might be leading to fatigue, and believing that just it's just life, right? I'm gonna tell you right now, the unseen cost of doing all of that stuff and not putting self-care to you, not just physically, will take its toll. And take it from me being 58 this year, right? I'm running through all kind of different tests, and thank goodness I don't have the stress level I used to have when I was trying to put things all on my shoulders. Right? It doesn't make a difference when you're putting stuff on your shoulders. When you are in the hospital, in the past, you're in the hospital and you started reliving a lot of these things, right? And you wonder what's important in your life, right? Is it like Doc said? Is it making that $1 million? I already said that I can check that one off a couple times in my lifestyle, my life, but when you look at what you've done in your life and how you could have changed to get a better outcome, nothing matters when you find out you have a health problem. I'm going to tell you that right now. Because once you have that health problem and it's being aware, you want to get it taken care of, because you start to realize that all the oxygen or the pains, the problems, the situations that you put yourself in ain't going to compare when you know you have a cancer, when you have liver disease, when you have something. You're gonna take that, you're gonna take that and run with it, because you're gonna have a different perspective on life, not just physically, but things are gonna matter. Your family, your self-care, getting over that anxiety, none of that's gonna be important anymore. But we're here to tell you that when you put self-care as part of the antidote for some of the things you have, because of the old beliefs that you might have been passed on to, you will see really big changes. Because like Doc said, you're going to be able to catch up on your work. You're going to play a video game. You might go take a walk, breathe the fresh air, do something that you like to do, go bowling, do whatever, go go do something. Sometimes you just need that for your sanity. And the domino effect of that, from that sanity reaching to your physical ailments, will change, because you're going to be a different state of mind. What Tony Robbins says, you're going to be a different flow. Now, I'm not saying if you're young and you want to go make $5 million, that's part of the journey you have to be on. There's nothing wrong with that. I've done it, right? I've burned two candles, stacked them on, and burnt it through the middle, back, up and down, everything, using drugs to get it past. But I also paid a high cost. The beauty of it is the cost I'm paying now is minute, because I've survived it. And now I'm just passing on this, what you say, insights, so that those old beliefs and those old, just say, viewpoints will not matter. The whole thing that matters is you have a flow of your own that makes you cognizant of what you want to be doing with yourself and your family. Because at the end of it all, when you're sitting in that bed, you're going to be really contemplating what life is. Steve Jobs did it. You mean you can have all the money in the world, you can't save yourself from a paper cloth. Change the world, everything else, you can't do nothing, because you don't have health. And self-care is part of that health. Having purpose is also having part of that health. You have no purpose, you have no direction, right? Because if you have no like Mika says, right? What he said, time only heals clean wounds. We need to make sure our wounds are cleaned out while we heal. Man, that is deep. Did I go off? Shit, I just became Doc for a little while. But no, it's like it's one of those things, Doc. Like you said, right? Because a lot of the people, a lot of men, right, even in relationships, think of it as something different, because they were taught differently. Then they go into this world right now, and it's like, oh shit, I didn't know this was going to happen. How do I handle this now? Nobody been taught. There's no direction. There's no manual. But if you're not straight up here and over here, and you can't, like, say, the ripple effect is just going to be so great that you just implode.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Doc, let me ask you this. How do you implement self-care rituals that can change the direction of some men's lives?
So how do you shape the rituals, right?
Yes, because all of us
You
have
know,
habits, we have rituals, we have,
yeah.
things that we, foundation, routines. What could be some of the small things that we could implement as men now to see a small effect, now that can change into something big later?
Oh, oh, absolutely. And but before I answer the question, I just want to respond to Carlin, really, and really
Oh,
just kind
we
of
do
confirm.
carding.
Yeah, you have to sharpen your axe and recharge to be effective, right? As your takeaway. You're 100% correct. You are 100% correct. I love that, right?
Hmm.
And let me also I'll say this as well. Sometimes it's not the amount of things that we have to do. Sometimes
Ooh,
it's the fact that we just haven't stopped to rest. Sometimes the load is the same. You just haven't stopped to rest, which again is
right,
why it's so critical, right? Because self-care shouldn't be a thing you do just when, okay, I'm feeling down, I'm feeling bad, I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling out of it, I'm not sharpened.
right.
It needs to be, there has to be a routine. I guess this kind of rolls into the question, right? You have to set boundaries. You have to set time. This is my time to rest. It will not be interrupted by anybody. It won't be interrupted by my wife who wants to have that deep conversation during my time. It's not going to be interrupted by my kids who want to spend time together. It's not going to be interrupted by work. It's not going to be interrupted by friends, family, mom, dad, nobody. Save God. Unless God says, hey, listen, I need you to move right now. But that's different because if God's calling you, he's going to give you everything you need anyways, while no one else is going to. So you have to set strict boundaries. I am not here to serve anybody else but myself. And for anyone that's like, oh, Keith, that's so selfish, you must not understand what selfish means. Selfish means I take for myself at the expense of others. Self-care is selfless. I'm pouring into myself so I can take
Ooh,
care of others. So you can't use that excuse anymore. Like, I can't take time for myself because that's selfish. I just broke that. You got to find another
you
excuse
need
now
to.
if you don't want to do it, right? Because you have to make sure you set that time aside. That is critical. Now, you might say, Keith, I don't got time like that. Yes, you do. We make time for what's important. I don't care who
True.
you are. There's
Yep.
people that make way more than me, that have way more meetings, way more responsibilities. And guess what? They have a very strict self-care routine
Regimented.
that no one can
Yep.
touch.
Yeah.
They even have longer workout periods and everything like that. Like, so there's no excuse. There is no excuse to not take time for yourself. Many of us are stuck on our phones scrolling for hours. And let me also say this: scrolling is not self-care time. Nobody gets recharged by scrolling for hours at a time. You only are empty because you keep getting a dopamine hit and dopamine hit and dopamine hit and
Mm.
dopamine hit, dopamine hit. And then what ends up happening is you're just drained at the end of it, right? So you need to make sure you have boundaries, strict time. Now you can set it up where it's less inconvenient for other people, right? You can do that.
Okay.
Like, okay, I'm going to do it in the morning. People are still sleeping in the morning. I'm going to do it in the morning, or you know what? I'm going to do it in the middle of the day where everybody's gone, or I'm going to do it when, people are asleep, whatever. You can set it up however you want to set it up, but it's got to be protected time, period, point blank, end of discussion. And I'll even share this. I remember one time when I first started doing this for myself, my wife was like, oh my gosh, that's so great. Now we can get up and drink coffee together in the morning. I said, no, we can't. And what do you mean you can't? I said, no, we can't. That's my time. That's my time for God, my time to work out, my time to read. That's my time. That was a fight. That was a fight. She was not happy. She was not
and,
happy.
and guys,
But
his
guess
wife
what?
will get with it.
But guess what? You know what? I set a boundary is not about making other people happy. It's not about making other people happy. It's about protecting what's important on the inside. And what's important was for me to have that time. And then guess what? It was just in the moment. But once you understood, okay, I see what he's doing. He's praying, he's reading his Bible, he's taking care of. Okay, cool. You know what? I'm gonna leave him alone, right? You know. And then if she ever did have something to say or something you want to talk about, she'd say, "Hey, Keith, is it you're praying right now, or is it you're still in your time?" Whatever she would ask, right? And so it's so critical to make sure you protect that time. I cannot stress that enough. And what you put into that time is going to depend, right? Because that's another thing as well. It's going to depend on what you put into that time, because there's different types of self-care and there's different needs we might have, right? So there's a self-care where you're doing like personal development and personal growth. Prayer goes into that. Reading your Bible goes into that. Reading, self-development books, working out, that stuff builds you up. That increases your capacity. This is critical. That type of self-care increases your capacity to handle more. But the other self-care time that you need to make sure you have is where you're resting, you're relaxing, and you're entertaining yourself. This is where you decompress. This is where you have fun. This is where the way that you can just take the things off of you, right? It doesn't have to be productive in that way. Put a video game on, watch a movie, then watch your favorite anime or your show or something like that. Like things of those natures, right? But you want to make sure, or if you're really, really, really overwhelmed, maybe you do need to go for a walk and regulate your nervous system, right? So it depends on what your need is, but the biggest thing is you have to carve out the time. It's critical to carve out the time. If you don't carve out the time, guess what? No one's going to do it for you. Your wife's not going to give it to you. Your kids aren't going to give it to you. Your boss is going to give it to you. Your friends, your parents, no one's going to give you that time. And guess what? Everyone I just mentioned, they will take it. They will take that time because you allow them to. Not because they're bad, not because they don't care, not because they're not considerate, because you don't have boundaries. That's why. Because you don't know how to say no. You don't know how to say, I'm at my limit. I have to stop. We don't have to be Superman, right? And guess what? Even Superman needs help.
Yeah, absolutely.
So even if you were trying to be Superman, even Superman needs help. So you have to just put it into yourself, right? And it doesn't mean you're weak, and it doesn't mean you're soft, and it doesn't mean you're not a man. It means I'm a human, and I know my limits, and I know how to recharge myself and take care of myself, so I can be the absolute best at all times. That's why you have to make sure that you have this self-care time and protect it with boundaries.
No, absolutely, 100%. Like Carlin right here says, the dynamic of love your neighbor as yourself. We love more our people and give our people other people at more direction than we do ourselves. I mean, if your career, your family, your demands a lot, but your well-being shouldn't be the cost of that self-care. You gotta be able to master and setting up those boundaries, like Doc said, firmly, so that you can gradually refill your battery, basically, so that it doesn't affect you and the people that you affect, right? Because a lot of the times, you might be frustrated with a lot of different things, and you don't take the self-care to rejuvenate or to recuperate and put your personal time into a problem that's not working at that time. But say you go to the gym, you take a walk, you do your prayer call, you do your meditation, and you come back and you have this revised sense of being, and you solve the problem. It's just the same exact technique, right? It's the same dynamic, because once you clear off a lot of those things and you put that self-care so that it becomes a regimen for yourself, things open up spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, so that you can solve the problem, because it's still going to be in the back of your head. Then something happens and you can actually implement the things, because you can reduce your chronic stress, you can reduce the professional burnout, you can reduce the communication with your wife in case you guys are having an argument. You can do a lot of those things. And though therapy is powerful, the best therapy you have is giving yourself care for yourself, so you can open up the doors to become yourself and not somebody else's version of it. Because like Doc said, a lot of times you want to be somebody else because of what you've seen, heard on YouTube, Facebook, whatever, Instagram, and you want to be part of that cult. And you forgot about who's important, you.
Yeah.
And to do that, you also have to forgive yourself for it. Because if you don't forgive yourself for it, you cannot move forward. Even if, no matter what happens, because once you start to move in that direction, once that momentum goes, guys, things open up so vastly. It's just going to be unbelievable, because that's when you cannot tiptoe back and forth. You're either going to go one direction and choose this regimen, this routine, this institutionalized path. I call it institutionalized because I know the feeling, so that you can recognize your mental health and well-being to feel sure about yourself and to change from that. Oh shit, I sound like Doc. I've been hanging around Doc too long. Like Mickey said, right? Authenticity awakens the authenticity of others by Brent Brown, right?
Yeah.
Now, Doc, let me ask you this one last question before. How important is brotherhood in men's self-care in this type of situations? I think this is a good one to end with, actually.
Yeah. And again, I just want to, shout out to Carlin again with, to love the neighbor as they love thyself, and then we don't take time to love ourselves, right? Because we don't have the boundaries. I think that's wonderfully put. That's wonderfully put. How can we love other people if we don't even love ourselves? We don't take care of ourselves, and also before I answer that question, I just want to leave you guys with an analogy, right? I'm sure everyone's pretty familiar with NASCAR, right? We don't have to know all the ins and outs, but it's cars going around in a circle for hours on end, right? You have to look at NASCAR and what they do. Do they just let the car go 500 laps and never come in? Do they do that? Do they say, to be a real great race car driver, I got to go for all 500 laps? No. And this actually is a great time. I didn't even think about this. What do? They have a pit crew. They come in. Yep. They change the tires out. They monitor the vehicle. They monitor the driver. So he's not doing it alone. He's taking pit stops. He's taking breaks in this long race. And so not only does that mimic, like we're talking about self-care, but also ties very well into the question, Gordon, you just asked, the importance of brotherhood. We're not designed to do this life alone.
Alone.
Yep. If I don't know if I've said it here, but I know this is something that's so critically important, guys, to understand that we were not designed to be alone. The moment God said it's not good for man to be alone, it wasn't good for man to be alone. And it's not talking about marriage. Let me say that one more time. When God said that, he was not talking about marriage. He was talking about the aspect of us being able to connect with others. Marriage just happens to be the highest level of connection, which makes sense as to why God would bring him Eve, because it's like, you can connect in every single way, shape, and form with your wife. However, before he brought him Eve, what did he brought him all the animals. And he said, there's not a suitable one among them, right? But as the Bible also says, iron sharpens iron, so does man sharpen the counter to another man. We need each other. You just don't see it across the board. And again, even if you're not of the faith, it doesn't matter, right? Because we know, studies show that we need people. You look at any prominent person in history, they didn't get there by themselves. Not one person, not George Washington, not Napoleon, not Genghis Khan, not Steve Jobs, not Jeff Bezos, nobody, not one, nobody, not one got to where they got to by themselves, not one. So why in the world, again, society, the lie society tells you, right, to be a man, you got to stand on your own 2 feet and do it alone. What? Nobody does it like that. Nobody does it like that. Nobody. No champion. The Olympics just finished, the Winter Olympics. You think they just did it by themselves? You think Arnold Schwarzenegger became, was it 7-time or 6-time Mr. Olympia by himself? Ronnie Coleman by himself? Jay Cutler by himself? You think Jeff Bezos got where he got to by himself? Steve Jobs? We know we can't do these things alone. So we need to stop lying to ourselves and thinking that we can or that we should. Now, I'm not saying we should be going and running around opening up everything to everybody. That's a horrible idea. I'm not saying that. But find a strong core group of brothers that you can link up with. You guys can talk and be honest and be real and be open and say, I'm struggling. I'm going through it. I'm having a hard time. I'm having some difficulty. Maybe they can help take things off your plate. Maybe they can help just be a sounding board for you. Maybe you can team up with them and do something. I don't know. But having that brotherhood when it comes to self-care is critical.
Huge.
It's critical, right? hanging out with someone, being able to connect in a positive, great way. Like, that's critical. We need to make sure we have that. We shouldn't be going through life alone. We should not be going through life alone. If the pandemic taught us anything, it taught us anything. All it did is reaffirm what God said. Depression ran all the way up. Problems ran all the way up. The loneliness, the isolation, all that stuff caused so many issues. If that doesn't show you, all of us have been through that, right? If that didn't show you, dang, it really is important for us to be together. That I don't know what else would. I don't know what else would. So it's critical to answer that question. It's critical for us to have some form of brotherhood in some way, shape, or form. Maybe it's an online community. Maybe it's a group. Maybe it's group therapy or some type of coaching group. Maybe it's your sports team. Maybe it's your sports team. Maybe you guys just hang out after playing soccer or football or kickball or whatever, baseball, so whatever. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's you guys at church, right? It's not like we as men are just isolated from everybody. We never see another man when you walk outside. It's not like we don't connect, but we have to be intentional about these connections. And there should be some time set aside, maybe once a week or something, where you guys get together and you can be open and honest and real, and just share and not put on this fake mask. Like I've said before in another message, on another podcast we had, where a lot of us will get together and we all want to connect, but then no one tries to connect. We all want to be open. We all want to have a safe space, but then we don't create the safe space. So with all that being said, brotherhood is critical to this. We gotta have it. We gotta have it in some way, shape, or form. There's got to be some level of camaraderie. It's to some level. And here's the thing: I'm not saying the group has to be like 15 guys. It can be you and your best friend. It can just be 2 of you, right? It can just be 2. If that's all you got, just do that, right? But just don't try to do everything alone.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% with that, guys. Guys, this is how important. This is why it's called Boundaries and Brotherhood Project. We have a brotherhood. We have a commitment. We have a group. We have men in this group that do business, learning how to use AI tools, learning how to successfully implement clear boundaries. And if you want some of that, or you just want a piece of that, take the assessment at assessment.boundariesandbrotherhood.com, and me or Doc will answer that, because though therapy is powerful, it's not the only toolbox in the regimen that's out there. And I want you guys to discover a comprehensive way to use these tools to your advantage, to use what me and Doc are saying in a hands-on approach, so that you can have the life to reach your true potential. Because all it is sometimes it's just somebody to believe in you and see the potential in you that nobody else seen before. Because sometimes, even for myself, I'm not going to believe in myself more than somebody else believes in me, but I want to give you that energy, right? When that energy is catchy and me and Doc get our hands on you, because from an insight from my experiences, from Doc's therapeutic side, and we do coaching, there is no way you will not reach your potential, at least move in the right direction. Because what a coach does is, give you the direction, the purpose, and everything else to reach your full potential. When we start guiding you, you will do it on your own. And that's what you want, because that's going to be deep. Guys, Doc, we just flew by that. Oh, and then guys, another thing, guys. I got to say, proud to be our sponsors. If you're watching this just released 2 weeks ago, Alert Pop, natural caffeine lollipops. I got to go give some to Doc over there, because I just got 1,000 of them right here. You're going to see this, because this is taking away the jitteries from the energy drink, right? If you guys want to go check it out, it's live on TikTok Shop, and it's live right now on Amazon. We're getting momentum. We're getting sponsorships. We're getting endorsements. So reach out, check it out, see what you guys want to do with that. Doc, you have any closing remarks before we end this show?
Yeah, I would say, guys, take this information and create a self-care routine. Whatever that might look like for you, but you got to create some type of routine. Find a time, like before you leave today, before we sign off, I want you to get out a sheet of paper, get a pencil, or put it in your phone or whatever. And I want you to identify a time for at least an hour, at the very least an hour, where this is just my time. This is the time that I can protect. This is the time that I can just do whatever I want to do with this time. At least an hour. Right. In at very least one time a week. And I'm being very, very generous with that because it really should be more than that. Again, use the NASCAR example. They don't just go in just one time. They go in multiple times throughout that race so that some of us have very stressful lives. We need the additional time to make sure we could lower those stress levels. And then side note, I don't know if you guys know this, when you're stressed out, it's very difficult to lose weight. Very, very difficult because the cortisol,
Oh
the
yeah,
stress of your body,
yeah. The
puts
course.
your body in fight or flight, right? It's also difficult to get it up, when you're stressed out, right? So that's also another thing. But in any case, we won't get into all that. It's another topic for another time. Maybe we'll talk about intimacy, men and intimacy at another point in time and what that looks like. But long story short, self-care is important and it affects every aspect of your life. Find a time, at least an hour, mark it down to your calendar, let people know, hey, you can't bother me during this time. This is my time and my time alone.
Beautiful. Doc, how can they reach you, or how can they, if they want to ask you questions, how can they reach you for our Boundaries and Brotherhood coaching and for your practice?
You can go to my website, which is fcstherapylasvegas.com. I'm also on any social media platform. You can search up FCS LLC. That's the easiest way to probably find me, FCS LLC, and then all my stuff will pop up with that. And my information's at that point, my information is very, very, very easy to find at that point. Yeah.
You can also reach us at Gmail at boundariesandbrotherhood.com, right? Our Gmail address. Reach out, guys. We're getting so much momentum here. In fact, Carrie's coming back to the show next week. We'll be jumping on tomorrow. She moved back to Florida. But she's going to be jumping back on. And we're going to be opening up another one. I think so next week. It Takes a Village is another podcast that we're doing for Real Talk. But
okay.
Guys, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for letting us serve you. Reach out to us. Take the assessment at boundariesandbrotherhood.com. Gordon Watt, I'm reaching out. Aloha. Bye.
Right. You guys take care.
Oh, I got to end this side. Boop. And then we're going to end this side. Holy smokes.